federalization of the Metropolitan Police Department and deployment. So now the U.S. federal government controls DC police. Okay, now they control. Usually in America, each state is sovereign with that. And the mayor of Mount Mirror, the black mayor of Washington D.C. should be ashamed of herself. Washington D.C. is a black city with black city council. They should never have let it get to this point where they can get embarrassed. Because basically, just like when we talked about Nigeria with terrorism, DC is a failed city. Now she's now and to make it worse, she's deflecting blame. She's saying, well, the crime rate has gone down 3 years in a row overall crime, but gun rates are still kind of high. First of all, she's making an excuse. Okay, so the crime rate has gone down 3 times in a row, but I live here. Whether it's gone down, it's still out of control. It's out of control. It's like saying, oh, I'm spending and losing a lot of money, but less than I did last year. This is an emergency. And for a black mayor and a black city to not collectively say this must stop in our city, they should also be ashamed and stop trying to point out what Trump did. Let's say Trump should be ashamed for what he's doing. Fine, he's a white guy, he's part of the right wing or whatever, and he's just making you look bad. But shouldn't black people in America, in our inner cities, and collectively be ashamed that we've allowed this to happen? Yes, we have excuses that we don't have federal funds and things like that, but within our cities, our drug dealers are running rampant. Within our culture, we glorify drug dealers, guys like what's his name, Jay-Z. So part of it is on us. It's time for us to take control of our cities and say this will not happen again. We could even say we're going on strike until we get federal funding for structures and stuff. But so long as we allow this gangsterism, because now gangsterism and thuggishness is now glorified by black individuals. They can make excuses. They can say, oh, it's the white man's fault for keeping us down. So now that our minds have gone wrong. But at some point, you have to be rational and take collective blame and accountability for your own people. I remember when anti-Semitic guy shot 2 Jewish people in DC. Remember that happened last month, 2 months ago? And you were talking about it. And Mary Bowser said, we will assure the people. Let me finish. We will assure the Jewish community in America that DC police will protect them. Why can't you say that for black people who are dying in the inner city too? Because the real DC crime is not actually in these tourist areas. It's actually within black neighborhoods where kids are going to get killed and continue getting killed. Because I promise you, Trump won't be sending federal troops into those areas. What are your thoughts, Gunay?
Yeah, the question is, so I just forgot, what did I say?
At first I talked about the two Jewish people were shot in DC, and the mayor said, oh, we're going to protect these people. But she's not.
Yeah, collective responsibility. So what does that look like? If we now want to say that this group of people should take collective responsibility, okay, fine. No argument there. What does that look like? Because I know for myself, I can't take responsibility for the next to me, much less an entire group of people.
Okay, here's what it looks like. You live in a suburban area. That's not what's going to happen. Look at Malcolm X, Nation of Islam. Look at Martin Luther King. The church is coming together to march. So black Americans need to collectivize themselves, create their own political parties, stop voting for the Democrats, collectivize themselves, go on strike, and raise hell until we get proper representation in this country through government spending and through our practices. African Americans should be the ones saying, hell no, you stop sending money for killing people in Palestine, because Palestine, South Africa, and America during the period of apartheid, we all share one thing in common. We've been part of settler nations in which we've been on the hill. So we need to pump our fists like the Black Panthers did. I'm not talking about violence. Black Americans need to, first of all, they need to say there is a problem, then say, how do we figure out the problem? Once they say, how do we figure out the problem, they're going to reach the result I'm talking about. Coming together as a group so that people feel your weight. Nigerians in America make more money than any other group of people because we work together. So all I'm saying, what it should look like is within the black cities of America, people need to work together, try to find problems through their city council. They have city councils. These black cities have city councils through their teachers, their doctors. Everybody should come together, identify what the problem is, and say and demand and lobby politicians to do what they say. The way you lobby politicians is come together as groups and say, we won't vote for you unless these issues are addressed, unless there's federal funding or state funding to build up our schools. Our schools there needs to be it's the government's goal. It's the government's responsibility to make sure that there are books for every kid, that there's safety. Then also things like social welfare training, so that people who are thinking about becoming criminals have other opportunities. So that's what it would look like. But what it really needs to look like is we need to have Black thinkers, Black teachers, Black social workers, Black pastors, Black spiritual leaders coming together saying, let's solve this problem. The way that you see other groups in America, the Arabics, the Italians, they have organizations and they interact with each other socially. What Black people are doing is killing each other with machine guns. And also glorifying through our music, rap music, calling women bitches, glorifying beating up women and things like that. What do you think about my answer? Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to look at Black America. Black Americans were not always like this. In the 50s and the 60s, they were organized and they were able to stand up and they did have industries and they did have their own banks and so on and so forth. And then what happened between the 50s and 70s, the Black
The housing
American
laws.
community,
They made white people left. So what did they make new houses? White people left the areas where blacks, because blacks and whites were living pretty close together. The white flight, and then they moved to other areas. And then the U.S. started refunneling resources to where the whites were, and it devalued the Black neighborhoods so that it weren't.
it's even beyond that. Between the 50s and 70s, it's not even about just the money. Between the 50s and 70s, what was really destroyed wasn't even the money. I mean, that these people rose from slaves and had nothing. What
Bruh.
was really destroyed was the ability for the Black American community to have leaders. The infrastructure is there, the councils are there, but there are no leaders. Even the leaders that we have now, the Al Sharptons and so on and so forth, they're just old people from the 50s and 60s.
They're frauds.
There's no, there's, yeah, they started off clean, but then they became dirty, and we have nothing. They have nothing that's coming up, and it's because the culture has been gutted from them, and the only rich people in Black America today are entertainers, performing monkeys, sportsmen, and television. That's where all their money is. There's no heavy industry, there's no banking, there's no engineering, there's no oil, there's no agriculture, there's nothing. It's just acting and sports. That's all. That's all it is.
See, and this is where I say segregation was better for blacks, because when there was segregation, we had our own banks, our own schools, our own industries. But once we assimilated and we got civil rights, we now moved into the white liberal facade. And so I just want to be part of that.
It's not that they moved in.
For example, the Black Baseball League, the Negro Baseball League was better than the American Baseball League, but blacks weren't allowed to play. But the black people said we would rather, they used to be better. They would even beat the white baseball league, but they were like, we want a right to play baseball with whites. So what they did was, when they got rights, they abandoned their own league and just assimilated because they wanted to be part of it. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Those leagues it wasn't so much that they were abandoned. It was at the same time the crack epidemic came down on them, and then the days when they were arresting and killing off all those Black Panther leaders, and they had to go into hiding and all of that. During those days when there was violent struggle as well as political struggle, and the attacks and the killings, there were many at that time, and the Black community never recovered from that in terms of its ability to have leadership. It wasn't just about the money. And
I agree, but here's the thing.
It wasn't.
But we have to like the blame.
I'm not saying that they decided to abandon it. I'm saying that it was taken from them. I'm saying that they were ripped apart. They were beaten and crumpled down. And that structure, that social Black structure that allowed them to do that was destroyed. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so here's the thing then. But the question is that we know that your analysis is correct. But the first step is accountability. When human beings know right or wrong. As a Black person, when I'm a gangster and I pick up a gun and I say I'm going to become a drug dealer, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. You know what game you're entering. You know it's wrong, number one. You know that you could get a job at McDonald's and live poor, but you chose to get into a game in which you know either you're going to die or get put in prison. Okay. Number two, they're taking it even further. You now become a drug dealer and you're making money to take care of your family, but now you're killing people because you want their girlfriend. So it's no longer about the drug business anymore. It's like so if it's not, let's say I become a mafia person, a drug dealer. Okay, I'm a drug dealer, I'm powerful, I'm taking care of my family. Sometimes I have to kill people, but it's business. Oh, but now I go beyond business. Oh, yeah, that motherfucker there, he think he cool. He took my girlfriend. I'm gonna take him. So what I'm saying is that a lot of this black on black violence is also allowing the whites to still have power over us. And a lot of this black on black violence is nonsense. It's not about, oh, I killed this person so I could take his business. I killed this person because he's cuter than me. Do you get my point? And
Yeah,
and
it's the science of economics.
and I'm making millions, and I'm making millions, and I tell my children, you're going to be a gangster like me. The whites, the Italians, they made money as gangsters, and then they made sure that their children became politicians and regular people, so they would never have to do gangsters again. Kennedy was a gun runner and an alcohol seller. Then his children became politicians. So what I'm saying is that black, if you're going to sell drugs because you say you don't have any business, you don't have any opportunities, don't teach your children to do that. If you make $1 million throughout your lifetime and you have nothing left because you spent it on drugs and girls and stuff, you have nobody to blame but yourself. That's not the white person's fault. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. What I'm saying is that, yes, if you look at other poor, poverty-stricken areas around the world, it's got nothing to do with whether they're black or white. Once you've crushed them, poverty-stricken, look at England. There are areas of England where you have people who are just like the black America of today, but they're just white people because there's more white people, and they're going through exactly the same thing. They just don't have gun culture, this knife culture of violence, but it's exactly the same problems. The only thing is that they've got different accents and different color skin. They can't organize themselves just as much of a rabble. So what I'm saying is that when it's been shattered and destroyed, I've lost signal.
Oh, I can see you. I see you. When
it's been shattered and destroyed from that point of view, there is no starting point where you can call a gangster and say, you, Mr. Gangster with a gun, hold yourself accountable, because he doesn't care anymore. He's been treated like an animal and has been zombied into an animal.
Okay, so
the problem I have, I don't have answers. My question is, where and how do we start? Even if they take
accountability. So I'm giving you the answer. I'm giving you the answer. Anybody, here's where you start. Here's where you start. Anybody in the black world, in America, if you live in a black neighborhood, anybody in a black neighborhood or any black American who lives in America, who knows that the problem is a problem of solidarity and working together and lobbying, and also not treating, when these young men that are criminals, you don't treat them as animals. What you do is you try to reform them through love and community. Anybody who knows that should be taking actions right now to do it. For example, I should be mentoring. If there are black kids who need mentors in those neighborhoods, doesn't mean I'm going to change the neighborhood. At least let me mentor one or two of them. I can become big brother. I can mentor some of them. Or if I want to become a teacher, I can teach in a black neighborhood. That's where it starts, little by little. Somebody has to step up and say, this is what I'm going to do. Most likely it's not going to work. So most likely we're damned. And this is my argument. The black man in America, the black woman in America will never see happiness, will never see freedom. I think Africa has a chance, because in Africa we still hold our resources and we're there. But black Americans are living in a nation in which they're outnumbered by whites and Hispanics and everybody else, and which is capitalistic to the point of evil, of being evil, with spending money on war. I don't think there's any hope for blacks. Just like you said, they're shattered beyond prior. So all we can do is watch the decay.
Blacks yes, I'll tell you why there's hope for black Africans and no hope for black American. Black African can be like, look at this person, he's a lawyer, he's a doctor, I can become a lawyer or a doctor. But in black America, there's only three things: you're a sportsman, you're an entertainer, or your drugs. That is the only way you're going to get out of poverty.
That's the main thing. That's the main thing. Yeah,
that's the main problem. All the other poverty-stricken areas, there are other roads. Now you have to change that. How do you change that? By having black people in industry. How do you get them into industry? Again, this is now an economic issue, because when you now have them following a culture of education, the culture of education learning is not enshrined in black American culture anymore.
African Americans should migrate. Any African American who has a chance to and wants to, I'm not going to talk to the drug dealer boy because he doesn't want to, should try to find a way to migrate to countries like Ghana, South Africa, and co, which are actually looking for people to come. Africa needs to be repopulated. Any African who can, I'm not saying everybody who can do it, but if you're a black American and you have a chance to go to Ghana, and which is a pretty stable country, and work and teach, do it. That's my only. There needs to be a remigration of blacks back to Africa.
Yes.
I'm not saying that it can happen.
Bring a skill that you have, that you've learned in the West. Maybe you think you can't get a job with it. Bring it to Africa and put it to work. You know, that's the only
That's the
thing.
only answer.
But
That's the only real answer.
about the
Because
culture of education, of valuing education again. I think Black America has lost the valuing culture of education. Now they just see it's just sport or entertainment. There's no more education. They have
and
to
Kule, can I have one point? Can I have one point?
once
The
you put
blacks who
that
do
culture
become lawyers.
back, everything else will follow.
Kule,
The
also
leaders will come back.
the blacks too to become lawyers and doctors into the problem with them is that they check out from the black community and they also buy into American supremacy. Or I'm a black lawyer in America. I'm the greatest black person on earth. For example, we all talk about Obama as a great leader. We don't talk about our African leaders. So like the black Americans who do well are actually just basically white people with black faces because they've internalized white culture. They say America's the greatest country on earth. We're going to send people to attack Nigeria, which is corrupt. We're bombing Iran. So they're basically traitors to their own heritage, which is actually African heritage. Every black American is actually a descendant of African culture, and you can still see the remnants. But the upper middle class blacks, the ones who do very well, are basically black white mask. They may be black physically, but internally they're Westerners. Obama is black. His dad is from Kenya, so he has African heritage. But Obama psychically is a white person. He's white. Do you get my point?
You know, irony, there is actually hope. There is actually a grassroots being sprung. But you know, the funny thing is not being sprung by Black Americans. It's being sprung by Black Nigerian immigrants to America, forming that very culture, the very kind of people from
but
which
they're separate. They're separate from the. They don't get along with the Black American community.
It's like a resource waiting to be tapped. I think that is the only door left for Black America. It needs to unite with the Black African.
But they'll never unite because Nigerians,
first generation, second generation Africans who are united. They themselves are opposed to Black America, but that unity needs to come for Black America to survive. They need to see the heroes in the faces of those Black African immigrants. That's the only thing.
I don't think it's going to happen. It's not going to happen.
That's the only
look at even Jamaicans are there. Jamaicans are there, Ghanaians, and they all hate each other. The Jamaicans, the Nigerians, the Ghanaians, and the Black Americans, and they all hate each other. This is why I said white supremacy.
There's Black American Nigerians who, unless they tell you they're Nigerian, you won't know. I mean, they have American accents and everything, and unless they tell you, you won't.
But they'll let you know. They'll let you know. A lot of them turn their nose down at Black Americans. They'll let you know. They're like, my mom is Nigerian. We do better than you, and they say it with an American accent.
Oh, in fact, I've had some staying here, but they're not here now. There's a Black Nigerian American. He's even more racist than the white American people that I know. He's really bad. He's successful, but yeah, I mean, and I know there's a massive.
They turn their nose up. But anyway, we've had a good show because we have Formula One in about an hour. So we'll continue this. This was a good show. We went down the rabbit hole. We started off with Trump putting truth on the truth, and we're talking about Nigerian Americans who think they're better than everybody.
Oh dear.
So I'll see you at 6:30. Okay.
All right, good one. Nice show.
Okay, nice one. Yeah. Let me turn this off.
Woo.
Sweating? Are you hot?